Ken Campbell,
The Seekers Podcast.
Not a holiday, more not a holiday, more not a holiday. Walk about, snell, spit, day long, lies one, half one, belong, everyone, something, bugger up, dead, finish yet, time.
Greetings, Seekers, and hilarious.
welcome to Ken Campbell, The Seekers Podcast, hosted by me, Daisy Campbell, Ken's daughter, and David Bramwell.
Ken Campbell was one of a kind. An unconventional performer, wordsmith, theatre director, comedian, trickster, and creative powerhouse. For this unique series, we'll be plundering Ken's archive to bring you the best recordings of his one-man shows, as well as other selected treats.
So, rather than us introducing Mystery Bruises, we've actually got Ken talking about it in an interview he did with Sheridan Thayer from a documentary she made called Antic Visionary.
Yeah. Well, Mystery Bruises. Mystery Bruises was mainly about behind-the-scenes activity with scientists that I'd met while we'd been filming Reality on the Rocks. This is a three-part series about quantum mechanics. But, I mean, very particularly it was about David Deutsch and the many universes of the multiverse. That was yeah, and Stephen Hawking as well. But yes, Stephen Hawking. Well, Stephen Hawking comes in Mystery Bruises to finally to confirm the extraordinary ideas of David Deutsch. I think David's absolutely terrific. As far as I know, he's the foremost knowledge in Britain regarding time travel.
I guess we all got really into Maurice Ward, did we? Maurice Ward, the Manchester hairdresser, who came up with this marvellous stuff, Starlight, some sort of polymer plastic stuff, which is utterly non-flammable or non-inflammable, both words meaning the same thing. Maurice allowed it to be tested, but never allowed it to be analysed, right? And here's the reports of the tests from the Cavendish Research Laboratory, Cambridge, and also NASA investigated. Report in here from the James International Defence Review. And it says here, the results have been astounding. The material is so heat resistant that it has bust lasers and withstood the equivalent impact of a 2-megaton bomb. They say you could sit in a box made of the stuff in the midst of an atomic bang and escape totally unscathed. They say you could sit in a suit made of it on the surface of the sun and not even be warm. Not bad. That is it for a Manchester hairdresser. Anyway, Maurice has been extraordinary with his discovery. He's so far he's turned down £2 million. He's not even allowed it to be patented. In fact, he says he's waiting for the right man to come along. An alert seeker sent me this. It came with a little note saying maybe he awaits the moment when the gas man cometh. This is quite a fun. Anyway, what this is? Hang on, little seekers down there. Have a look. Don't pass it round. Let's have a look at it. They're all looking in there at the Xerox copy of the front cover of Gnosis magazine, and pictured on the front there is Saint Dominic. Original name, you see, Domenico Gazman. Gazman there is heading the Inquisition, and he's made a little bonfire, look, in that church. You know, just stay with that bit, look. He's made a little bonfire in the church, see? And on to, look, can you see him poking into the bonfire? There he is. The Cathar Heretic Books. Yeah? Now, the Cathar Heretic Books are going to blaze away fine. But in Gazman is going to put a Holy Bible. He's going to poke a Holy Bible into the bonfire. Not only is the Holy Bible not going to burn, it's going to pang out of the bonfire with such force, such ferocity, that it's going to both bruise and singe the beam. Now, you'll find that the church sadly has tumbled down now, but they've still got the beam. The beam has been moved to a little church now in Rennes-le-Château. Anyway, implication there, seekers, that back then in 1250, that the Roman Catholic Inquisition had access to some sort of non-inflammable elastic with which they could hang Bibles up to the roots. But a bunch of the seekers and I were looking into this, and it just does seem that Gazman there is in fact guilty of having pinched Cathar heretic technology. You see, because your Cathars were an interesting bunch. Your Cathars held that there were two gods. That there was God Almighty, who they equate with nothing. You get this? So and the Cathar God Almighty is complete fuck all, right? Right? That's the thing. And then there's this evil, balmy, deranged demiurge who created the evil universe of matter. And so the job of your Cathar, of course, is to help wind the whole show up, wind the universe up as soon as it can. Now, of course, the Cathars realised that to do this, they were going to have to get into science pretty deep and pretty early. So I'm talking about back then in the year 1000 and before, and they had quite an advanced form of science. Because you see, your Cathars, not believing in procreation or believed in it, but they believed procreation was an evil. And so they came up with this great way of slaking male lust, which was anal sex, mass anal sex for the chaps, you see. So you say, how are there going to be more Cathars to help wind up the universe? They run orphanages. Your Cathars, and some fell by the wayside a bit and did have kids, of course. Anyway, but they came up with this really quite advanced science, which was based on what they called air currents, magnets and stuff they found up people's bottoms. There's your Cathars, and so it's all your holy buggers, you see. They are your original holy buggers, your boogars, your bogomils, your bogeymen. Right? Anyway, if you nip to the library tomorrow morning and look it up, Cathar, C-A-T-H-A-R, you'll find that it will say that they were all done in by the Inquisition. The whole lot were wiped out by sword and flame by the year 1251. Anyway, I was going over to address the seekers of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada on these matters. And it's certainly, I've no doubt that I knew more about Cathars than anyone in Halifax, Nova Scotia, but in this I was in complete error. Everybody in Halifax, Nova Scotia knew way more about Cathars than me, and I'll tell you why, because it's bollocks that they all got burned up by Gazman and co. A whole load of the buggers escaped through Bulgaria, which in its day was known as Bugger Area, actually. And they escaped across they got across the Atlantic 300 years before Columbus, and they settled in Halifax, what's now known as Halifax, Nova Scotia. And when the Brits and the French arrived there, properly with their flags and whatnot, there were all these indigenous Cathar buggers living there. And so they didn't want them there, and so they put them all in ramshackle boats with the hope they'd all sink, and most of them did. But then some of them got to Louisiana. And you see, your Cathars are also known as Albigensians, also known as Arcadians, which is your Cajuns, i.e. Cajun cookery, Cajun music, right? As a hint of the old Cathar heretic about it. And some of them got to Montreal. Right? And there were some seekers interested in this. I'll open a few doors for you here. Yeah. As I can tell you something. It's called in Canadian history, that when they sent all the Cathars off in rotten boats, it's called the dispersal of the LeBlancs, properly, because the main family name was LeBlanc. And last year, there was a meeting. All the LeBlancs, all the dispersed LeBlancs came to Halifax, Nova Scotia, for a bit of a knees up. But there's a lot of odd things apparently went on, behind closed doors. And I can tell you who was there. Was Joire was there, and Dimambro. He was to rise, you remember, with a marvellous cult of death. You remember Joire and Dimambro? It was only a few weeks ago, actually, and his cult of death. It was terrific, wasn't it? First of all, there was those three who burned themselves up just outside of Montreal, and then the action moved to Switzerland for your Alpine Armageddon. And then there was the House of 23, they all burned themselves up, and then the House of 25. They did it rather marvellously with... by filling bin bags full of petrol, and then sellotape to the cooker to go off at a certain time. And they died, if you recall, if you read this stuff in depth, with their feet all sort of weirdly pointing at each other, underneath a creepy-looking Jesus with a rose Seekers always beware of creepy-looking Jesuses with roses, man nodding here. Because that, as seen as gentlemen there knows, is the sign of your cathar, right? And, I mean, what's pathetic in the Insight and the Guardian and everything like that, they've got 6 people working on this, is that they're at pains to say that Joire and DiMambro suckered all these rich guys and ladies into the cult and then burn them all up and bugger off with the money. And then they have to say, oh, I see, no, they've been found in there with their flock. They burned up with their flock. Oh. And then the whole thing comes in. You never read anything more about it, do you know? Pathetic. I mean, surely that is the moment where we want the doors opening and say, what were these guys up to? Well, I can tell you what they're up to, because your Cathars from time immemorial have been into the technology of death. Do you see, if you die in certain ways, and a creepy-looking Jesus with roses, with your feet pointing in, there's a lot more to it than that, of course. But you can reincarnate under will, i.e., you can be reborn with your memory of this life intact. You know, and the style of folk who generally knows about that have already done this a few times, you know, so they've got people building up their lives, you know, obviously towards winding up the universe as soon as possible with all their, you know, like growing knowledges. Also, they're capable, I think you put your feet slightly differently, and you can possess. You see, and like chap there, probably doing much through this life, they go, oh, go on, out he goes, chap, and they whoop, come up you see, and the missus wouldn't know. I mean, all she noticed was that he seemed to be a bit nicer than he was, you know, they're cunning buggers, your Cathars. Yeah, anyway, so, but they were telling me as well that the Holy Grail, the Cathars brought the Holy Grail with them, and the Holy Grail is buried about 40 miles out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Oak Island, Mahone Bay. And the Holy Grail is down this thing that's called the Money Pit on Oak Island. They've been digging after it for 100 years now. And it's a most extraordinary piece of engineering, engineered hundreds of years ago. I mean, first of all, they thought there was going to be pirate treasure down there. But the thing is, the dating of the works down there is way precedes the pirate days. And anyway, so but the thing is, it's engineered very cunningly with water traps. It's like a sort of Indiana Jones thing. This your money pit. But anyway, just let me touch on the Holy Grail for a moment, because I was a Sunday school boy, you know. I went to a Methodist Sunday school actually, because it was a difficult road to cross to get to the Church of England. Anyway, the Holy Grail then, I mean, was our Lord's blood, you know. You know, presumably if it existed now, it would be in clotted form. You know, blood in clotted form, but they say, no, you're fool. It's the cup, it's the chalice in which they caught it. But then do you remember, I mean, this is some time ago now, I guess the older seeker read this, Holy Blood and Holy Grail. Come up with a dramatic different story what a Holy Grail is, man. I mean, to get into this, you've got to know that Jesus went on, in that lost bit, he went on holiday in France. He took this dame called Mary with him. Was it Mary Magdalene? To be honest, we're not awfully certain about that. Certainly her name was Mary. And they had a couple of kids while they were in France, and they said, oh la la, we'll leave them in France, they can be French, did they? And so they left them there, and that became the line of French kings, the Merovingian dynasty, you see? So that's not just a royal line, that's a holy line. And that holy line, that holy lineage, these are all things that were known to Jean Cocteau. And then, anyway, this holy line comes into our own royal family, Henry VI and Henry VIII. And dang is unbroken to our Queen and Prince Philip. They both being from the loins directly of Queen Victoria. You knew that, did you? But not first cousins, so their children shouldn't be potty. And so Prince Charles, you see now why Camilla Parker Bowles is prepared to go through all that hassle and stuff, you know, and get your hands, ladies, on holy spunk. I mean, this is your dream, isn't it? Anyway, the Grail, as I was saying, is down that money pit out Mahone Bay, but we rather think that what it is now is probably the scientific, the scientific secrets of the Cathars, you know. I think you'd probably dig for it in vain now. It's already been dug up by a Manchester hairdresser. I'll tell you what they have pulled out of there, incidentally, is a bit of parchment that looks like it's a bit of the gospel. Bit of the gospel of the laughing Jesus. I never heard of it. I mean, I was a Jesus wept man, not a Jesus laughed. No. Well, actually, when you think about it, we do know about it. You remember that creepy film with Sean Connery, when he was a monk investigator, and he goes to that creepy monastery, and they've got some secret or other. I mean, it's such a desperate secret, loads of monks have to die horribly in ponds and things. And he's like, well, what is this secret anyway? And it turns out to be some sort of joke somewhere that they've found. It's quite, incidentally, if you want to know about Holy Grail, it's Holy Grail Across the Atlantic by Michael Bradley. It's a Canadian publication, but compendium will get it for you. Anyway, they pulled out a bit of parchment, as I say, that looks to be a bit of the Laughing Jesus Gospel. And anyway, they were showing me where you find it. You find it in the Nag-Hammadi Library. You know about the Nag-Hammadi Library? No. No, right, well. Now, to understand what this is, first of all, you've got to go back to the Council of Nicaea. At the Council of Nicaea, what year was that? 348 or something like that. Anyway, Emperor Constantine had got rather interested in this Christianity business. But at that time, there was loads of different Christian sects, and there was loads of Gospels. There was Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There was the Gospel of Judas, even the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, all sorts of Gospels, you know. And but anyway, Constantine got interested in Christianity, and he got interested in this God Almighty, not the nothing one, you know, sort of that big one, the more hour. And he said, you know, because this would be awfully handy for conquering people. He said, I mean, like, already we could have all the Mithras folk. He says, it's awfully like Mithras. The Christian said, is it bollocks like Mithras? He said, Mithras is just the god of the sun. He said, yeah, no, well, says Constantine, we'll tell them that Mithras is bigger than we thought. He said, they really won't mind, I don't think. He said, so that's all that. But he said, I think the bother, though, is, you know, in all these conflicting Gospels. He said, you know, we can't just conquer people and hold a debate. He said, so listen, he said, so we'll just have a few, look, we'll just have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all right, and John, and that letter from that nice Timothy, and a few other bits and pieces. I said, man, that's just a starter pack. No, he said, I think it'll do us, to be honest. And anyway, so that's what he did, and so he destroyed all the other ones, and anyone who sort of remembered anything about the other ones didn't seem to turn up on the Thursday. You know, because not really heard of again. You see. Anyway, so that was that. So all those ones have been missing and lost up until 1948. And it was in 1948 in Nag-Hammadi, that's a region of Egypt, that this Arab decided to go and murder another Arab in another village. I believe it was a rather nasty piece of work, the one in the other village. And thank God, he managed it. He dispatched the guy. And he was in this cave, resting. And he backed into this fucking great urn. And he gave it a kick, and out came all these papyrus scrolls and whatnot. They were written in oldies, so they couldn't make head and tail of them, but gradually he humped them all back to his mum's. His mum used some to cook on. And anyway, then they got to the marketplace, and he said, well, good Lord, these are the lost Gospels. And that's been like, it's all in here. You can go to St. Watkins, always stop this. It's got the Gospel of Thomas and Philip and all this stuff, and some of it is quite extraordinary, actually. Now, this is the one they showed me in Halifax, a fragment of which come out of the Money Pit, which is the second treatise of the Great Seth. We don't actually have the first treatise, probably Mum cooked on that one. Here, look, you can have a look. See, the interpretation of the crucifixion is that of the Gnostic Basilides. Simon of Cyrene is crucified in the place of the laughing Jesus. Now, they said, well, this is the second treatise of the Great Seth. It's a sort of comedy monologue by Jesus, which the Great Seth, a sort of Billington of the day, anyway, sort of, jotted down the best gags. And when you get to the crucifixion bit, there's Jesus standing up on the hill, and there's this Simon of Cyrene character, and it's him they put the crown of thorns on, and nail him up on the cross, and Jesus just can't help laughing. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I've been a supposer, well, for really as long as I can suppose. I mean, suppose that you shouldn't believe anything, you know? They don't believe anything. I mean, even the great beliefs. I learnt this in the Ganseal Library from a fellow in a beret. Always listen to people in berets. He said even the great beliefs, Kenneth, if you trace any of the great beliefs back, you'll find they're all the product of a human mind. He said, the product of a human mind is not worth basing any belief on. You know, no, he bumped into somebody, he says, and I believe that. Yeah, well, I don't believe that, you know. He's like, well, we're in the country of a blinkered arsehole, that's for sure. I don't believe anything. But to suppose, you see, to suppose, it's different. You know, like lady there may well be not a UFO lady, you know, her opinion might not be that a number of ladies from Inverness are being picked up by flying saucers as we speak and gynecologically investigated and some of them fertilised. You might not be into that. Look, you know, but if she just went, oh, buddy, you know, just like that. Because when you think, you see, thinking is an electrical process, you see, the electricity's going on when you think, and you don't know how it will reconnect, you know, it'll replug up. And, you know, that is what we call an illumination or a flash. Could, you know, could happen for you there, dear. Yeah, yes, I know. I mean, I suppose you could suppose that one of the great religions had got it absolutely right. You know, in every nook and cranny, every nut and bolt got it. Only suppose it. Only suppose it. I mean, any sign that you believe that your belief is it. I mean, that is what the ancient Greeks called hubris. Any sign of that, man, the regular gods will come shrieking out of the skies. It'd be very nasty for you and everyone concerned, and probably some innocent bystanders. But to suppose. And I'll tell you what, I mean, we're well served in London, I suppose, aren't we? I mean, there's some excellent bookshops for us. My bookshop, been my bookshop for nearly 30 years now, is Compendium Bookshop, Camden Town. I mean, not only will they, you know, get you anything, I mean, they actually automatically stock, you know, the stuff that's not on any computers, like Anthony Verney's The Happy Retirement. Colin Bennett's Practical Time Travel. And also the staff there know what they've got in there. You know, if you develop some absurd or abstruse interest, they'll be able to open little doors for you. They'll shine some light for you. Get you the gear. Our boys need books. I was in there not so long ago. Oh, and there was a bloke in there. Do you know Terry? Terry had recently, he said, encountered a gnome. He'd been on holiday in Cornwall and out on a walk, and then standing by this hedge just by a 5-mile gate was a gnome, about that high, you know, his little hat on and everything. And he was alive and everything. And he said, hello. And the gnome said, can you see me? He said, you're not supposed to be able to see me. Yeah, I mean, I can remember my first hypochondriacal excitement. It was about when I was 7. And I just started to read, and I was wondering why they put, you know, books so high, so out of my reach. What was in them? And I climbed up and I got one down. Quite simply, it was Pear's Cyclopedia. Anyway, I was thumbing through it, and I found myself in the medical section. And I was reading about your appendix. You know about this at the onset of appendicitis. You want to get along to the hospital fast. You've got about 36 hours. You know, otherwise the appendix is like a boneless finger, evidently. You know, like this. But nobody knows what it's doing there, actually. It's some sort of alien finger you've got in there. Anyway, if that starts to expand much, there's going to be a build-up of gas and fluids and food stuff, and kaboom, you know, it could explode. Anyway, handily in the encyclopedia, they've got a little drawing of your appendix, where it's to be found and everything. Anyway, so I was feeling it, make sure Mum was, you know, all right, and just seemed it. Well, actually, it wasn't, you know. And then I thought, actually, maybe I've bruised myself by poking around so much, you know. So I thought, well, I've got 36 hours, so what I'll do is I'll leave myself alone for, you know, 6 or 7 hours, then have another little feel, and you know, just feel bad. I better tell my mum and better get off to the doctors straight away. But the problem was I couldn't leave myself alone for more than about 3 minutes, you know. Like that. And anyway, luckily that afternoon, because we weren't at school that day, I think there was an election, and we were off to my auntie's, and my auntie had a proper, medical advisor. So I snuck off behind the sofa with it, and this was marvellous because this had like proper colour plates in it, like this. So you can really get to grips with what you've got and everything. And try and work out whether you're all right or not. Anyway, following various flowcharts and symptoms along it. First of all, it turned out I'd been born with a woman's bladder. And then following on, well, I was pregnant. I had heard, I was only 7, I had heard it was mainly ladies who went in for that, but the following day at school, Geary's School, Barkingside, Ilford, Essex, I was asking around, whether any of the other kids had maybe heard of, men ever giving birth. And that's where I received this information. I've never had it verified again. I mean, maybe somebody can help us with this tonight. But that was that Muhammad was born from a man. Muhammad was born from a man's leg, is what I heard. And that's why, like sometimes they wear those quite voluminous trousers, but tight in there. It's in case there's a second coming. Because, you don't want the great man rolling in the road, an important baby like that. And anyway, it sounds a bit wacky to begin with, they've been born in a man's leg, but if you just really feel in, you can feel how that could happen. Anyway, I said I thought of a bit of a snack coming out of school, and down by Gants Hill Tube Station, there's a bookstall, and I got hold of a second-hand paperback called Curiosities of Medicine. And it turns out that actually quite a number of men have given birth. And it comes about like this usually, that they were going to be twins. They should have been twins, but their twin somehow got inside them, It's what's called a parasitic twin. And the twin will be ever so wee, ever so small maybe, for years and years. And then nobody knows why. It'll start to grow. And it's not going to necessarily make for an orifice either. This thing will come out anyway. There's an Italian count, and his twin, his parasitic twin, just the face of it started to come out on the back of his head, And there was an awful silly fella, blah, 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 parrot strapped to the back of his head. And there was another fella, this is a little area, and he had like a hollowed out chest, and like his chest, he could open it like that, and in there, like sort of growing out of him was his, like a little homunculus twin thing that he could never to. He used to feed it, had to clean it out regularly. Anyway, all in all, I thought I'd better get along to the doctors, And so my mum took me, and the doctor examined me. He said, I think you're all right. He said, no, he seemed very bruised. I'll tell you what's always been, for 20 years or more, it's been marvellous, is the 40 Times. It's just absolutely terrific, and it's gentle and humorous, and, like you can always go further if you want, or just, have a little bit out of there to work out. I don't get into all this various stuff, not to, let me tell you, because I was far too young when I got involved with TM. I was only about 20 or 21, but we kept seeing this, it was all pinned up everywhere, TM, because it was a trademark, TM, TM. And marvellous things would happen for you apparently if you joined TM. And so I went to the Caxton Hall to find out about it, and it was this old British colonel fellow, and he was saying, TM stood for Transcendental Meditation. Anyway, if you joined his outfit, you'd get a mantra, and then if you meditated on your mantra, I couldn't think what this would look like, maybe on your mantra, so some sort of oriental box on the show. Maybe on your mantra, or maybe a mat on your mantra, you'd sit on a mantra mat. Maybe. Anyway, whatever. And you meditate on your mantra and you bubble back into yourself. You'd bubble back in and you'd find the blueprint of yourself. And man, I tell you, you never do this half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening. Anyway, then sometimes you'd be finding, apparently, that you'd be pulling back your bowstring. That half hour in the morning, you'd pull back your bowstring, and then kaboom! You really get things done in amazing fashion during the day. It's a rather attractive idea. I'll tell you what was attractive, is it sounded like cheating. Anyway, so I signed on for it, and this involved then having to go along to this very nice house, big house in Kensington, and you had to take with you 5 pieces of fruit and 5 balloons, was the instruction, and my dad had given me some few cans or something out of God, and 5 outscan oranges on it, and then you had to take along a cleanly laundered handkerchief, and I've forgotten that, and I just said, bogeyed up old John, and so I had to nip into the washroom and get that washed out. So in my case, the ceremony was done with a damn hanky. Anyway, there we were in this big room. There's about 50 of us waiting to get our mantras. And it'd been stressed that the meditation was for rich and poor alike. Anyway, the man and the lady were coming round for the money now. And quite simply, you'd pay 1 week of your salary. See, if you're £100 a week, man, you'd have to give them £100, you see. And so well, they came to me and I said, well, I'm out of work. And they said, well, the meditation is for rich and poor alike. They said, are you receiving any assistance? I said, what? Yeah. They said, how much? So I said, £6. I said, that's right. It's for rich and poor alike. And so they took me £6 off me. Anyway, then I was called upstairs, and I had to sit opposite this old like a sort of retired military gent, and he showed how to sit. Well, there wasn't anything greatly complicated. It was something like this, I think. And he had shirt cardboard with him. You know what I mean? You know when you get a new shirt, you get a bit of cardboard in it. You know, and it comes back and clean or something. It's got cardboard in it. Anyway, he had shirt cardboard with him. And written on the shirt cardboard was, in English phonetics, was some sort of Sanskrit or Urdu or something. Anyway, he read from his shirt cardboard. Not that impressive, in my opinion. And then there was a bit of arsing around with me blooms, with me flowers and the rice, so he'd taken the fruit off me, and then a bit of embarrassment with the damn hanky. And then he looked deep into me, and he said, yours is bonga. He said, well, say it. I said, bonga. He said, no, listen. He said, bonga. I said, bonga. No, listen, he said, bonga. I said, bonga. Yeah, no, he wanted me to repeat it. Bonga, 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 bonga. I went. Faster he needed it. Bonga, 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 bonga. Slower. Bonga, bonga, bonga. He said, no, he said, we'll get you going again. He said, there'll come a point, he said, when I shall clap my hands. When I clap my hands, I want you to imbibe the mantra. Like, you know, he didn't want me to be saying it aloud, I had to imbibe it. He wanted no physical movement at all, actually. And from that moment, I was never to repeat my mantra. That's all it is. Mantra, just bonga, that's it. You know, certainly that's all you get for £6. And, bonga. Anyway, then I was never, to say it aloud again. Certainly not to tell anyone. Anyway, bonga, 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 bonga. Anyways, he was satisfied, and I had to then go next door and meditate on my mantra for half an hour. He said, if anybody wanders in, he said, you just carry on with your meditation. He said, they'll be very caring people. They'll know what you're doing. You just carry on. Right, fine. Anyway, I went into the next room, and I was thrilled. I was so excited. I'll tell you what, I was only young, and I hadn't realised how many foolish people there were in the world. I mean, downstairs there was 50 people. And of course, they weren't on the dole at all, any of those, you know. They'd been handing in £100. There was some dickhead there. He said, I only earn £50 a week, he said, but I'm giving you 75, he said, because I know it's going to be so worth it. And I just take around, new old oranges. Listen, they take melons and pineapples and all that. Bonga, bonga, bonga. Raking in all this money. There's some tie-up with a florist and a fruit stall. I wasn't meditating in there. I was thinking, on with this information. What can we do with our lives, boys? And then there was a sound of a possibly caring person outside the door. Bonga, bonga, bonga. Bonga, bonga, bonga. Anyway, the person came in and said, all right, you can come out now. And then I went down in the kitchen. I had to have my meditation checked. And this fellow said, how did your meditation go? And I said, the mantra went faster and slower, and sometimes it was imperceptible, just a sort of echo. He said, you've had a deep one. He said, don't expect them all to be as good as that. always approach your meditation innocently. Absolutely. Anyway, he said, you're out of work. He said, so you could get 2 done. You get half an hour in the morning, and another half hour I'm done by 6, couldn't you? I said, I suppose so, yeah. They said, well, in that case, then you could go along to this address in Finchley at 7. He said, Mr. Thing will check your meditation for you. I said, oh, thank you. Anyway, so they were such nice people, actually. I thought, well, I better go along. And I went along, and he was nice as well, and he made me a cup of cocoa and brought his cheese out, and he said, how did your meditation go? I hadn't done it, of course. And I said, I think I had another deep one this morning. I said, you know, it went faster, it's slower, and it's sort of echo and all that. But I said, evening one was a dead loss. I said, maybe I was a bit nervous about meeting you. Could be. He said, always approach your meditation innocently. Yeah, right. Anyway, so I said, I'll see you same time tomorrow then. I said, oh, well, thank you. Anyway, I went along the next night and told him some rot about how it had gone. And he made me a ham salad. And anyway, he thought I'd be all right for the next day, but I had to see him again on the Friday. And I thought, oh, Christ, I've got to get out of this nonsense. You know, I mean, the problem was they were such nice people. And the thing was, I mean, I wanted to be a great writer. I mean, the last thing you need if you're going to be a great writer is a company of nice people. You know, I needed to be with perverts and criminals. And so I thought, how am I going to get out of this honourably, you know? I thought, well, the way you get out honourably would be to, you know, break the law, break the rule, you know? And so I did so. I hurled mine to the rooftops. I said, mine's bonga! Ha ha! And I was passing a newsagent. I said, mine's bonga. And I told the bus conductor too. And I got home, and I stayed, I was living at my dad's actually, and anyway, I felt fine about everything, you know, and they never bothered me ever again, and that had been the end of it. And it wasn't for this. I just, a few months before, graduated from, as I should say, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And the thing was, I hadn't managed to get any sort of employment. And there's this directory called Contacts, which is like a sort of list of imparatios in like chance employ you, and all you can do is really write off to them. But I've noticed that there was a fellow with a funny name running the Palace Theatre Watford, Giles Havergal. I mean, not a funny name, I wrote him a funny letter. So I wrote him a funny letter and I got a reply. And so I wrote him another funny letter. And this time I got another reply from him, and he said, would I like to go and meet him with a view possibly to playing Angus or other small parts in Macbeth. I thought, well, yeah, I do. I'm very keen about this indeed, you know, because I've got no money. I was having to live at my dad's, you know. I mean, he was a very funny guy, my dad, but, you know, I wanted to go out and prove myself a bit. And so I was down at Gants Hill Station, I had to set off to Watford. I mean, how far that is? I mean, Gants Hill's way down there on the central line. Watford, I think it's about the longest thing, you know, journey you can attempt on the tube. And back in those days, you remember, you used to have a specific ticket to go to a specific place. And I got Watford, you saw it, it's a very good guy, I don't think you've ever he had to write a note to the ballot Watford saying I paid and put and stamp it. That was their topic. So he had this curious letter of transit. I thought, well, I've got to get this job. I mean, I'd always known that there is a secret, you know, to getting something you want. You know, there is a sort of open sesame magic thing, you know, like you go in, bong, and you got it. I've always known that. I don't know quite how you do it and what it was. Anyway, so I was going down the escalator. I thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pull back my bowstring then. You know, I'm going to go bonga, bonga, bonga all the way to the Watford. Even though, you know, you just get self-conscious, even though it's just you. Anyway, I was going down the escalator, come on. Bonga, 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 bonga. Bonga, bonga, bonga. Bonga, 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 bonga. Anyway, by the time the train came in, I was really going on it. Bonga, 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 going on the train, and all the bonga, 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 people sitting opposite. Bonga, 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 bonga. But actually, they didn't know that I was doing that, because actually I was just going. Bonga, 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 bonga. Change trains. Bonga, 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 bonga. Now I didn't let up for a moment. Bonga, bonga, bonga. Anyway, I got to Watford really quite early. Bonga, 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 bonga. I thought, what shall I do now? Bonga, 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 bonga. I know, I'll go to Joe Lyons' Cat for a cup of tea. Bonga, 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 bonga. And a scone. Bonga, 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 bonga. I didn't say anything to the lady at the till, of course. Bonga, 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 bonga. Bonga, 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 bonga. Sitting down, is it possible to drink a cup of tea while going bonga, bonga, bonga? Yes. And he's a scone. Bonga, 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 bonga. So it's time now to get over to the theatre. Bonga, 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 bonga. They had a stage doorkeeper there. I said, yes. bonga, 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 I'm not interrupting it for you. Bonga, 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 such a piece of paper. Bonga, 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 bonga. And I wrote down bonga, 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 I, bonga, 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 have come to see bonga, 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 Giles Havergal, curiously not in my handwriting. Anyway, he said to go and wait upstairs. I had to wait for a man with a mincing gait. Bonga, 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 bonga. Anyway, this great tall geezer comes by and nods to me. Bonga, 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 goes in the office. Bonga, bonga, bonga. I think that's it. Bonga, 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 bonga. I'm still waiting out here sometime. Bonga, 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 bonga. And I thought this, man, I'm going to go bonga, 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 bonga now till the very last moment. And he called for me to go in. Bonga, 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 bonga. But he didn't look up because he was reading my letters. Bonga, bonga, and he was chuckling a bit. So that second one really was quite funny. Bonga, 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 bonga. It's going to be in a moment, isn't it? Bonga, 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 bonga. You know, like pulling back your bowstring. Bonga, 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 bonga. This was like Agincourt. Bonga, 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 bonga. And then Giles Havergal looked up. He said, well, at last we meet. And I said, well, I bungled away, my speech, you know, my power of speech is gone. I tried to explain to him what had happened, you know. I'm getting quite panicked. My heart was overbeating. I was beating very fast. If you have a turn like that, you don't know if it's permanent, you know. I thought, well, I better get past the fear. You know, I'll just get past the fear, you know. And so I thought, well, it's probably what I knew what had happened, you know. I was still bongering, you know. I couldn't stop bongering. I've got to stop. I've got to clear the de-bonger myself. You see, this was a language. I mean, it's not frightening. Possibly not a language of this universe. The thing was, if I stopped it, I didn't know anything. But if I did that, I knew everything. I tuned in. I was rooting through the Akashic records. I was sure you playing kindergarten stuff, like you have to base metal into gold, anything like that. And I was trying to convey to Giles Havergal. Christ, they write some of this down, you know. This is Giles Havergal left the room. But when he came back, I noticed that he'd changed his trousers. Let's have an interval now. Thank you very much.
Ken Campbell, The Seekers podcast, was produced and presented by Daisy Campbell and David Bramwell, with kind permission from the Ken Campbell estate. Music was by Horton Jupiter. It was funded by Arts Council England.